Greetings to humans and non-humans alike. I'm Blake the Fairy, and today I'm going to be defending Snow White. Now let me make this clear. I'm not defending Snow White because I think she's the ultimate feminist icon and every woman should be like her and blah 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 blah, yada yada yada. I don't. But here's the thing. We unfairly judge this character. We ignore the context of her life, we ignore the context of her situation, we ignore her age, which is a huge contributor, and she gets an unfair rap. Now, why does this matter? This matters because stories can give us a huge insight to where a society's values and prejudices lie. For example, if there was a story on which a woman in the story was abused, and it was not only presented but seen as a normal or okay thing, that tells you that society views it as a normal or okay thing. If it is viewed as a horrible or bad thing by that society, then that tells you that that society doesn't like abuse. That was kind of horribly put, but you get the point. The way that we view stories, the way that different stories are presented and judged, tells us a lot about that society, their biases, their prejudices, what they value, and undervalue. And I can tell you, I see a lot of undervaluing in this movie when it comes in the context of our society. Now let's get into the meat of this video. First off, Snow White is 14. That means she is a child. And there are a lot of people out there that are like, oh, I bet she's old enough to make her own decisions. And while that is true, she is still a child. And if you actually watch the movie, the only people we see at the palace are the evil queen, Snow White, and the prince, who just kind of appears out of nowhere. Which means the only influence Snow White has on her life is the evil queen. And I doubt the evil queen would have taught her the whole stranger danger thing, or taught her anything about protecting herself or staying safe. So the next part of the movie after this, just thought I'd make that very clear. So the next part out of this movie, keeping in mind that she is a child, that she is 14 with limited life experience and limited interaction with people, a huntsman takes her out into this field of flowers and reveals that the stepmother ordered him to kill her. She is terrified. This woman that she has known her entire life is trying to murder her. Like, can you imagine how scary that is? That is terrifying. And the art of the chase scene, like when she's just running through the woods and all the trees and vines and plants are just grabbing at her, it is horrifying. And honestly, from an artistic standpoint, it's how a panic attack feels. I know, because I have panic attacks. I'm pretty open about that. I'm not saying that they're, representing mental health or anything, but they are representing her emotional state at the time. She's scared for her life. She just learned that her safety isn't safe. So she falls on the ground and starts crying because she just needs to let it out, which again, people judge her for being too emotional. Crying's actually extremely healthy, and we need to dismiss that whole idea that it's not. Here's a little fact about crying. We have found in the scientific community, I say we, even though I'm not part of the scientific community, we have found that that when you cry, it flushes out stress hormone. So crying isn't weak. It's a very basic mechanism to restore emotional balance and chemical balance. So yeah, that's just extremely important. So she's crying, she's letting it out. Little animals approach her, like, because they're cute, like, ooh, little animals. And they scare her, and she scares them, to which she owns up to her mistake and apologizes. She does not get enough credit for that. And I find it very concerning. There are not enough characters who own up to their mistakes and apologize for just the mistake. The only characters I've ever seen is I usually see characters that will never own up to their own mistakes and just keep insisting that they're right, you're wrong, end of story. Or I see characters that apologize for literally everything. Like, oh no, you tripped and stubbed your toe, well it's totally my fault because I'm 10 feet away from you. But no, Snow White is the only character I've really seen that they only apologize for their mistake, which was she scared them and she shouldn't have. That was it. That's all she apologizes for. Then she asked the characters for advice. The animals, I mean. Which again is a big thing. Rarely do I see a character ask for advice and then take that advice, because the animals are like, I sing a song. Well, they didn't say it, but they, you know, they said it. And she's like, oh, you guys sing when you get sad, so I'll sing too. Which actually, again, very healthy coping mechanism on a mental health standpoint. That's a very good example. You should encourage kids to sing about their feelings. It's a really good way to not only express your feelings, but to understand them. So she sings, and they lead her to a safe place because she asks them to. She finds a little house, and it's disgusting. And there are little chairs. Now here's the thing, no mother I know will ever let a house get that gross unless they're neglectful, like horribly neglectful. And it's only little things she sees, like little clothes, little pots and pans, little chairs. So she comes up to a rational conclusion that she gets judged for as irrational, which is that they must not have a mother. And then, and this is something she does not get enough credit for, she decides to earn her keep. She decides, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to clean this mess, and then maybe they'll let me stay. That is a very good strategy. She's not planning on mooching off of them, or she doesn't expect them to owe her a place to stay. She wants to earn a place to stay. Which is brilliant, and honestly a really good example to set for kids. I'm not saying kids should be doing chores until their feet fall off or anything. What I'm trying to say is teaching kids that nothing in life is necessarily free is really good, that we all need to sometimes work, that we all need to work for what we get. That's a good lesson, just saying. So she works and they sing a song, which again, good example. I'm just pointing out the good examples because there are some bad examples in this movie. And then the dwarves come home after she takes a nap. And here's the thing, and I wish the dwarves are being judged, because here's the thing. They come to this house, they see it's completely clean. There's food on the stove, and their first conclusion is, there must be an evil, horrible monster here that wants to kill us. That makes complete sense. Since they cleaned everything, they must want murder. That's their assumption. That's the first conclusion they jump to, is that there's a horrible monster in their house. Like, they're terrified. Honestly, if I came home and everything was clean, that's the last thing I would assume. Horrible monster. Like, come on, guys. Use your brains. So, they find Snow White, and here's the part where I think she's totally boss, and I wish that more people pointed out this scene. So, she introduces herself. They introduce themselves. They all play this game. She goes downstairs, tastes the soup, is like, oh, it's almost ready. Gives you enough time to wash up. And they're just confused because they've never washed their hands a day in their lives. And she's like, show me your hands. And she instantly becomes the ruler of the house. Like, she instantly becomes the matriarch. She's like, I rule this house now. Like, no, well, not rule. That's terrible phrasing. What I mean is, she takes charge. She wants them to have clean hands at the dinner table because that is proper and healthy. So she looks at their hands, tells them to go wash their hands, and they do it. And that's what's cool about that character, because she tells them to go do something, and they're reluctant, don't get me wrong, but they're like, you're right, okay, let's go wash our hands. Which also gives us, like, that's totally bomb, because she basically becomes their mom. Like, yeah, they're older than her, but she's their mom, if you know what I mean. Like, she rules that house. And it's honestly not a bad thing. She becomes boss in that scene, is what I'm trying to say. I really appreciate that one scene where she tells them to wash their hands and they just do it. So the next day they leave, right? They leave, and one important scene that I would like to point out is that Grumpy did warn her about the witch. He did point out that you need to be careful of strangers because the evil queen has magic and can trick you. The thing is, Snow White does not internalize this. She hears it, sure, but she's just focused on how Grumpy cares about her, and she's just so touched because he's been a rude jerk to her this entire time. She's like, oh, you actually do care about my well-being. Aw. And it's, like, honestly, that's not a bad thing. Well, it is a bad thing that she didn't internalize some very important information, but again, she's human, and I'll get more into that later. So then, she's on her own. She's making them gooseberry pie because she cares about them. Then the evil queen comes, and here's the thing that I think is completely unfair. This is what the evil queen looks like. Like, beautiful, young woman. This is what she looks like when she's gone all voodoo crazy lady and has made herself old. How are you supposed to think that this looks like this? Even in a world of magic, these look nothing alike. It's a pretty darn good disguise. And Snow White does get manipulated. She does get tricked after the evil queen pretends to have a heart attack. Now, I have a major problem with people blaming Snow White for being deceived and tricked by this woman. Because here's the thing, I've only been manipulated really twice in my entire life, both times on the internet. I don't want to get into them. But I can tell you that when you are currently being manipulated, you don't always see the red flags. People are like, oh, Snow White should have seen the red flags. You should have seen the red flags. But again, when you have limited experience, when you're young, it doesn't matter how into red flags you are. I've researched red flags way before I was manipulated, and I still didn't see them. That's one of the reasons you need to rely on your community, your friends, your family, because they have an outsider's perspective, and they will point out the red flags. Anyway, so Snow White gets tricked, and then, you know the rest of the ending. They're all sad. I would like to point out that in the film, they never said it was true love's kiss that would break the spell. They say it is first love's kiss. Just thought I'd point that out. Now, Snow White is resourceful. She is kind. She is trusting and open. These are all her greatest assets because it's what allowed the dwarves to trust her, to help her. It is what allowed the animals to trust her and to help her. But unfortunately, because she's so open and kind and gentle, it leaves her open to manipulation as well. Her greatest asset is her greatest flaw. Now, this is where I noticed a lot of prejudice. Because if this was a male character, where their greatest asset was also their greatest flaw and their greatest downfall, then that would be seen as brilliant writing. And with masculine female characters, it's seen as greatest writing. But because she's a feminine female character, it's just seen as her being stupid. You see the problem with that? I also find it extremely unfair that everyone is expecting her to be like this hyper-feminist, like everyone dislikes her. All the reason they dislike her because she isn't this hyper-feminist independent woman. Now, first off, she is an independent woman. She knows how to cook and clean and take care of herself. That is independence. She's also 14, and people keep forgetting that because they don't say it in the movie. I mean, I can understand, but that's still a very important detail. And here's the thing, a lot of people say she is an independent. I notice a lot of the things, when I dive in for more detail, a lot of the things they claim isn't independence is because she needs a man to save her. Well, no, first off, that isn't until the very, very end of the movie, and second off, why is that necessarily a bad thing? Here's the thing, we strive for independence so much, and independence is a really wonderful thing. Being able to take care of yourself and hold your own and being able to trust yourself and be able to protect yourself is a very, very good thing. Don't get me wrong. But we as a society are painting a narrative where a woman cannot rely on anyone, and that is scary. Because we as a species are designed we're designed to rely on each other. We are social creatures. That's why we have communities. That's why we have family dynamics. That is why we have social groups. Because we are social creatures, we have to rely on each other. And the fact that everyone wants so badly for Snow White to be independent and be able to take care of herself entirely is not fair and not realistic. Yes, learn how to defend yourself. Yes, learn about red flags. Yes, learn about this, blah, 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 yada, yada. But also develop a stable support group. Because that's important too. she has a stable support group, and she is judged negatively for it. Is she a perfect character? No, but that's kind of the point. And yes, I agree. Having the narrative of, oh, you need a prince to save you is not necessarily a good one. In fact, I would like a movie at some point where they're two best friends and they save each other. Of course, those best friends would probably... I mean, that would be really great. Of course, people would ship those best friends because it's the internet, but hey, I would appreciate it if they were just best buddies that they just cared about each other and just had each other's backs. That would be really cool. Like, if it was like a classic Disney princess movie and it was just two best friends and they... Oh, that would be great. Like, I mean, classic Disney movie. But here's the thing, So, yeah. I just been rambling, basically. So, in conclusion, yeah, Snow White has some bad examples. But instead of penning her as this super anti-feminist character that you should never let your kids watch that movie, only the new ones, that's a bad narrative. And it's not realistic for what the movie actually is trying to tell us. I think Snow White is actually pretty cool in some ways. Do I think she's naive? Do I think some of her decisions are questionable? Yes. But if you actually watch the movie, she's actually pretty boss. And we need to stop expecting female characters to either be flawless or masculine.